got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to the station. Welcome back to the channel. Y'all know who it is. It's your boy, Ray G. You can find me on X at RayGQ. Today, I am joined by two content creators here over here at DD Fantasy Football. Y'all know who it is. It's the boy, Scott Connor. You can find him at Charles Chill FFB. And for those of y'all who don't know the smooth talking, sultry sounds of this young man sitting in between Scott and I, this is Cody Smith. You can find him at Cody Smith TFDR. He is one of the co-hosts of the Overreaction Pod here on DD Fantasy Football Radio. And today we have got a treat for you. We are going to do a not one, not two, but 3-round rookie mock draft, but it's going to be best ball. 12 teams start 12, 1.75 tight end premium, because we know this class is loaded with Rob Gronkowski's, Greg Olson's, and all type of Hall of Fame caliber tight ends. Scott, you ready for this one, baby?
I am. I think this is our second best ball mock, and it is going to be our first mock that is based on a real 7-round NFL mock draft. Shout out to Ian Cummings of Pro Football Network. We are using his mock, and that is what you see on the screen. So zoom in. We didn't have the ability to put his actual mock on here, and it's easier just to put this grid up there, but this is his 7-round mock, and we're going to draft a 3-round best ball draft based on this. And I'm sure people are probably looking at some of these picks already, as we all did, and are going, okay, I don't agree with that, but that's fine. Like, the idea here is to take what we've been given, analyze it, and do a best ball draft off of it. So as you can see, just some real basic highlights. There were 38 receivers drafted in this mock, which is, I think, a lot more than people think, given, you know, the strength of this class, but it's not actually too far off historic rates. Last 5 years, it's been about 33.5 receivers drafted per draft. Pretty much everything else chalk: 22 running backs, 13 tight ends, 12 quarterbacks. And then obviously there's round and landing spots based on the grid. So that's all I really wanted to make sure everybody knew. We were getting this from an actual 7-round mock. We will link it in the description. Again, Ian Cummings of Pro Football Network, basing it off of that. So give them a shout, pull it up, read through it if you want. But with that, we're going to get right to the board. And here we go. It actually starts with you, Ray. At the 101, again, 12 teams start 12, best ball, 1.75 tight end premium, Superflex. Any thoughts on the format? Just your thoughts, Cody's thoughts on just how you would approach this based on what we've been given before we get into the specific picks. Cody, why don't you go first?
Yeah, it's what we love with Dynasty Fantasy Football, honestly, probably with the three of us, is that best ball format, the deep format, starting 12 of them each and every week as well. The tight end premium up to 1.75. How high do the Colston, Loveland, and the Warrens go of this class? And then how many tight ends overall even go in this draft, because we are doing 3 full rounds of it. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of movement, and those landing spots really are going to start to take shape and effect as early as probably like the 103, 104 in this draft, because there's a lot of shakeup at the top too.
Ray, what about you? We're big. You and I have done a ton of mocks on this channel already. We've been big on the ADV, right? But here we can kind of throw that out the window because we don't have the draft capital that is hypothetical. We actually have draft capital and landing spots here. But in best ball specifically, where you usually have to choose between holding zeros and the potential ADV, how do you navigate that? Because I think that's real tricky for people that will constantly hear, I don't want to have zeros, yet you do want to have some of that ADV on your roster, but it may start out the year as being a zero. How do you kind of navigate through that when you're doing these drafts?
Yeah, this is tough because it's only a rookie draft. So we're talking best ball. It's only rookies. And I think ADV is probably most important. The time that people are going to be making these picks is right after the NFL draft. It's going to be May. It's going to be June. For me, I don't really give a shit about zeros right now. The season doesn't start until September. So if I put my hypothetical hat on that we're doing this in April, we're doing this in May, June, or July, I don't need points right now. So what I want to do is try to look at these landing spots, these situations, assess what could happen with a quarterback, a wide receiver that lands in New England with Drake May. What happens for the tight end that lands with Bo Nix? Like, how will the market react? So for me, it's all ADV. I'm thinking about the thing that can rise or the thing that can fall based on the landing spot and situation. And the fun thing and the unique thing about doing mocks based off of full mocks is it sort of removes all this other hypothetical, I think he should go higher, I think he should go lower. I'll just say this, shout out to Ian Cummins for doing 7 rounds. There are some of these players and picks and spots that I categorically, I just disagree with every fiber in my body, but that's not the point of this. This ain't the Ray GQ mock. This is the Ian Cummins mock, and we're drafting like this is what happens on draft day. So I've got to get my head in this mode, and I'm ready to rock this joint, man.
100%. The only thing I would add is that obviously there is that constant battle in best ball of how many players can you afford that you may not think have a role, but you also have some ADV or a role that could potentially develop. You made a great point, Ray, that we still have a lot of time. Even when this draft would take place, let's just assume we're doing it beginning of May. You still have an entire summer to erase the narrative of, oh, that's guaranteed to be a 0. It might be a 0, but you have plenty of time to where you have to make that decision. So we'll probably talk some positional value and whatnot as we go through. Ray, you have the 101. Best ball, start 12. Nothing fancy other than 1.75 tight end premium, but you were first. Let's go.
Thank you for making it easy for me, and I will be very quick because I'm taking Ashton Jeanty. In this mock, he was selected 6th overall to the Las Vegas Raiders. You're talking about a running back going to a team desperate of running back talent. He is an incredible prospect. Speed, vision, acceleration, contact balance, burst, and he lands in a situation that they need him. So if Ashton Jeanty were selected 6th overall, I don't really care that Cam Ward or Shedeur were 1-2. I want Ashton Jeanty. He's my 101 in this mock draft format.
101, Ashton Jeanty. Cody, you are up with the 102, my friend. What are you doing here? This is where I think immediately it could get interesting. You were actually drafting for a team in best ball. You have no context, but I'm very curious what you do here.
Yeah, and I'm going to shake this one up probably from the past DD mocks that we've done on this channel, or at least the ones that I've seen so far. I'm going to go with Tetairoa McMillan, like 8 overall to the Carolina Panthers. I feel like I'm a little bit higher on him than I've seen some of the other creators on this channel so far. I really do think that he's like a small, discounted version of like what an AJ Brown is. And if he ever hit his elite upside, I do think that would be the elite ceiling upside for a Tetairoa McMillan type of player. Really love all the tools that he has. He's going into a team where, I mean, if you might be able to tell me that Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker are the best 2 wide receivers on that team, Tetairoa McMillan walks in as your 1, even if they do bring back 35-year-old Adam Thielen. Tetairoa McMillan is going to feast. And if Bryce Young takes that step forward, I really like Tetairoa McMillan in this pick at 8.
Ooh, Ray. Best ball, Ted McMillan. We're not doing snake here, so I only get 1 pick, but I just want to get your thoughts there. Would you have done that in a best ball league where, I don't know, maybe there's some more impact players with maybe even higher ADV? What are you thinking about that 102 pick?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I like where Cody's head was at. Ted McMillan is dope. I would have gone in a different direction, but I'm not about to give you any kind of insight of where I would go, but I'm fine with Ted McMillan there too. I'm mocking against you. I want to have a good mock here. I'm not giving you shit right now. 2 picks in. It wouldn't have been the pick that I went with, but I'm cool with it. I've got no issue with it, Cody.
Oh, well, that puts me in a pickle because not that I would have taken Ted McMillan, but I actually thought that one of the quarterbacks was going to go for sure with Cody Smith at 102, but he's not taking quarterback. And I think based on this mock, if I had to go just based specifically on these landing spots, as much as I want to take a quarterback, just because adding another quarterback to your stable in a best ball league is huge, just getting a starter, especially with the draft capital of the top 2 in this draft. But man, it is hard to pass up Quinshon Judkins going to the Vikings in the 1st round. I mean, that's just, I can't think of almost a better spot. I almost like that spot better than the Jeanty spot just because it's a great offense. They've had running backs that have smashed the past, half a decade or more. And the ADV of Judkins to that landing spot with 1st round draft capital, I think that would be my number 1 skill player after Jeanty pretty easily. So I'll go Judkins at 103. Ray, it's back to you.
Yeah, thank you for leaving the player that I wanted on the board here at 4. I am not going to take a quarterback. I'm not taking a quarterback right here. Genty and Judkins are off of the board. I'm taking a tight end. I am taking Tyler Warren, who in this mock was selected 17th overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a team who could potentially lose T. Higgins. You're talking about a prospect who just physical makeup resembles very closely to former Arizona tight end Rob Gronkowski, future Hall of Famer, first ballot. Not saying that Warren is going to be Rob Gronkowski, but he's 6'6", 260 pounds. Penn State doesn't lie about their size and weight. They've done a good job of being consistent with that. And you're talking about after the draft, you're telling me Tyler Warren in a souped up tight end premium gets drafted by Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. You're talking about freaking ADV for any other. There's no player on the board whose value spike could go through the roof in a tight end premium like Tyler Warren paired with Joe Burrow. I don't care how much he's historically used a tight end versus not. I've seen Mike Gesicki be good. Freaking Tanner Hudson out there catching passes, and people were excited about Eric effing All going into the year. This year, this is a smash pick. Give me Tyler Warren at the 104. Easy.
Cody, if T. Higgins does not return to Cincy, they don't sign anyone, and this mock holds true, and Tyler Warren enters the season as their wide receiver 2, could you argue that he goes almost at the 101, 102? We're just hypothetically looking at this draft. They didn't take any other receivers, and they prioritized him amongst a million other needs. They took a freaking tight end in the first round, and I think immediately how could the community not look at T. Higgins' production last year and go, that's Tyler Warren at tight end? Is that crazy?
No, and especially with the format being a 1.75 tight end premium, with the rookie explosions at tight end that we've had the past 2 years in a row, past 3 years in a row. I mean, you could definitely see people launch him up the boards because they are chasing that next elite tight end, young rookie producer. And you put that with the Bengals offense, even with T. Higgins potentially coming back, I think you could see people vaulting him all the way up to 102, 101. And I was going to take him. I was going to take him as well at the 104. If Ray didn't take him, I was going to push the quarterbacks again. If you went with the quarterback, I was going to push the quarterbacks down. But you forced me into it now. I have run out of players that I would take that are not at the quarterback position. So then we just have the battle of either at the 101 overall to the Tennessee Titans with Cam Ward, or the 102 with Shedeur Sanders. Which position or which spot do you like a little bit more? I don't have too much of a separation between the quarterbacks themselves, except I think Cam Ward can do a little bit more with his legs and make some stuff happen outside of the pocket a little bit more and downfield. But I hate both situations for the quarterback stepping in if they do have to start week 1. But I'm going to go with the 101 overall first off the board here. Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans is going to be my pick.
Ray, you look back historically, if you get a 101 quarterback in a best ball league at the 105, does that speak to, and I don't think that's crazy. I don't think any of us would have taken Ward any higher than he went here. Does that just speak to where we're at currently in Dynasty with the quarterbacks, where people are just like, if I can't get the elite guy, I'm not risking it over the just smash skill players?
Yeah, I think we've been burned a little bit by some, traditional high-level pocket passers and fantasy production. And I'm with Cody. This is a weird spot. I feel like you have to take Cam Ward. He would have been the quarterback that I prioritized over Sanders. And quite frankly, I think it's because of the division that he plays in. I feel like he might be able to do a little more in the AFC South than Shedeur is going to be able to do with his supporting cast in Cleveland and the AFC North. But yeah, I think this is fantasy gamers saying, give me the tight end, give me the running backs, give me the wide receiver 1 over a quarterback that could be solid, but I can go find solid. I can go find Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith and Jared Goff with his new OC, and he's going to fall off a cliff in quotes, and Dak Prescott. I think this is the community and people getting a little sharper and not just jamming a quarterback in Superflex at the 101 or 102.
Man, you guys really put me in a bind here. I can't disagree with anything you've said. I know if I was probably on the clock, it would be very hard for me to not move out of this pick, knowing that there's only one more quarterback that's probably even worth taking in the next 2 rounds. which is Shador Sanders that went at 102.
Well, can you pick like not like it's Scott picking again, but the 106 is on the clock in this format. Yeah, you're making the pick, but the 106 is here.
Yep.
And before you pick, I'm looking across the board and I see probably like 2 or 3 other positions I would take over Shador. And I love Sanders. And that's just me though.
Yep. I think it's not just the ADV on Shador, like whether you like him or not, there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that are going to see this landing spot in Cleveland and say, that's a dead team that I don't want my quarterback going to, with potentially a lame duck GM and a lame duck coach. I personally don't think this would be a great fit for Shador Sanders for those reasons. I know Dion came out and was like, I've talked to the Browns. He's fine if Shador ends up going there. But like deep down, I don't think this is what they want, right? I wouldn't want to be into this situation with that lame duck GM and coach, with my best player wanting traded because I don't think they can win. And now you're the guy that is expected to come in. And is there any way Shador Sanders lives up to expectations in that situation? Because even if he goes 500, people are still going to go, oh, he was not God's gift of football. You know what I mean? He failed. And it's like he entered a situation where he probably had no options but to likely fail. So I'm going to pass on him. Here's where I think my process really gets tested. In best ball, especially with the way this draft board went up, I'm typically valuing running backs a little higher because running backs that I can project with a locked and loaded role plus draft capital plus ADV, hard for me to pass on that when I can find wide receiver 3 through 10 randomly throughout my roster. Like I don't need to draft Emeka Egbuka in a spot that I don't really like. I don't need to draft Luther Burden in a spot that I don't really like. So I'm going to go Caleb Johnson, and I'm going to take Caleb Johnson in Denver, where they are starving for a running back. They gave a ton of work to running backs last year, and none of them were really good. I think this would be seen as, I think people might have Caleb Johnson as RB2, maybe even over.
Where was he drafted, Scott? Just for the people that didn't see it and are listening, where was he drafted?
He went pick 51, second round to Denver. So Denver Broncos pick 51. So I'm going to go Caleb Johnson.
RB3 here. Off of the board too. RB3 off the board.
And Ray, I have a tough time taking a second round NFL pick, but I think in best ball, like if you can lock in one of these running backs in best ball, like that's as hard to find as anything else. That's way harder to find than a receiver. That's way harder to find than a dart tight end. And it's way harder to find than a quarterback that I don't think anybody's really going to like. So there we go. Caleb Johnson. You're up, Ray.
And you guys are leaving me all the goodness. I am just excited. If I'm here at the 107, I'm looking down the board and I see the Kansas City Chiefs drafted Ollie Gordon in probably the fifth round. DJ Giddens comes off the board in the fifth, sixth round. You got some fourth round running backs, some third round running backs. I'm good at RB right here. I'm swinging for the fences. I'm taking a player who I've seen with their head coach smash at the position. I'm talking top tight end overall. This is still a 1.75, and we're talking about a tight end who went 3 picks after Tyler Warren to a team that has no tight end, to a team that wants to utilize the tight end. Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos took Colston Loveland at pick 20. If I'm sitting on the clock at the 107 and a 1.75 tight end premium, some people think he's a better receiving option than that of Tyler Warren. I'm smashing this. I like Caleb. It was between he or Caleb for me. I was thinking, which one will I take? And I'm good. I'm good with Colston Loveland, selected by the Denver Broncos, round 1, pick 20. I'm taking him at the 107 here.
Yeah, man, it makes me think, can I trade that pick that I took Cam Ward at, Cody? Can you trade that for Bo Nix, given the fact they just added him, Colston Loveland and Caleb Johnson?
Yeah, that offense adds a lot of firepower in this draft. A lot of firepower. And yeah, I might not be as high on Loveland compared to Warren, but he can still score fantasy points the exact same way. He's still very good in the receiving game as well. And they've got good receiving options there right now. They're like okay enough, but Loveland would absolutely elevate that offense to a different
level. And Cody,
level.
it's even if you're not as high, because there's a bunch of players I'm not as high on. If it were to play out this way, knowing that Denver has nothing at tight end. Sean Payton keeps talking, I need this. We want this. He knew Bo Nix was his guy. People doubted him, and now he's QB 7-6 in Dynasty. They take him or whomever tight end in round 1 at pick 20. I don't give a shit if it's gun or helm. I'm trusting the process, and I'm trusting Sean Payton.
Yeah, he's going to get targets almost no matter what. So I definitely can't fault you there. It does put me up at this 108 pick, though. And this is where I don't think I can let it go any further. It is best ball. And typically how I like to build my quarterback rooms, they're typically not built through the elite guys. And we've still got the quarterback here and Shedeur Sanders on the board, 2 overall to the Browns. I think I got to take him here just because I love it whenever I can just stack like 4 bodies at quarterback and best ball. And yeah, typically I don't like to spend a 108 pick. Typically I like to spend like 2nd round picks on those guys. But when you're still letting a 2 overall quarterback go all the way to 108, I'll take the shot here. It may not be great year 1. He may dip in value, but you know what they're not going to do? They're probably not just going to yank him year 1. This is a 3-year plus investment probably. Now, they could yank your they could yank your head coach, they could yank your GM, but I think that you're at least going to probably get to those 2-3 years that elite high level draft pick quarterbacks get, and I'll just take that production that's going to come over those years with Shedeur.
I see Ray, you're shaking your head. Talk. I know you got something to say.
I think this was the pick because I feel Cody, right? Maybe this is just too much NFL, Ray. I'm very concerned about Cleveland. I don't think it's a 3-year leash. We just saw the number 1 overall pick 2 years ago, who the Carolina Panthers traded the world for, get benched at the start of his 2nd season. If Stefanski doesn't win, he's gone. And these situations where you have lame duck coaches and lame duck GMs, find me a situation where this ends well more times than not. I do not trust Cleveland. Cleveland and New York are the 2 spots that neither of these quarterbacks with a failed season feel safe with a new regime. And I'm just looking at the Browns and I'm thinking about the ADV of Shedeur Sanders. He's got to go up against Pittsburgh twice a year. He's going to have to go toe-to-toe with Lamar twice a year, toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow twice a season. Whatever quarterback it is, if they are not proficient in those games, the fantasy community will dog them out, and none more than Shedeur. I'm going to hold my wrist up and show that AP Sanders. I think this is a spot where you can get a quarterback and you feel like you've got a fucking dead asset like you had with A-Rich and Bryce Young at times. And I love Shedeur. This is a very red flag spot for me. I don't like it at all. I probably would have pushed him again and dared somebody else to take him. I will dare you to do it, because even on his best day in this situation, what are we talking about? QB 19? He has 0 rushing upside, 0. He ain't running nowhere. So you're talking about he's got to be able to sit back in the pocket and deal.
Ray, I think you invoked a perfect comp, which is scary for people. And anybody remembers, if you had Bryce Young as a rookie in best ball, he didn't give you anything. Nothing. Even when he started, you were getting like QB 30 numbers. You know what I mean? Like to the point where you would have rather just collected the backups over even investing anything in that player. Now it's rebounded for Bryce. But if you tell me I have to deal with that same stress, I would have drafted anything other than that and just come right back when in year 3 I could still get him for a mid-first. I mean, you would have traded this pick plus another pick to get Bryce Young right now rather than taking Shedeur Sanders, right? Like that's the kind of thing where as soon as you do that exercise, you're like, man, if there's any stress at all, I don't even want to deal. It's just tough to pass it up. I understand where Cody's coming from.
Yeah, I'll play the production over the value game just a little bit more, and there's still the upside chance that somehow Houston Texans were a terrible spot. That everybody was saying a terrible spot coming out for CJ Stroud, and quarterbacks surprise us all the time. So at least the position, I'll take a shot.
The difference is DeMeco Ryans and company went and picked CJ Stroud. His new head coach went and got him. This is not that, this is not that. And all I'm saying is at the point that we're doing this draft, there is no production. Like we did this draft in May and June. I would rather let the volatility of that play out before I make the investment. I feel like if it plays out like this, if you take Shedeur, you hold all the risk. Like there's probably little flexibility. Like you're holding the risk, which is fine. But yeah, that's just my thought on it. This is why we've got to do this. You're going to be faced with draft capital versus lame duck versus does a new regime give him a shot? It's tough.
I mean, the scary thing is that knowing the Browns, right, this might be a pick where the owner said, pick that guy. You know, the coach and the GM were like,
I dual Carter.
I don't want that. The coach and GM are going, I don't want a rookie QB with no weapons and a bad defense. Like, but the owner's like, nah, screw you guys.
How do you
I'm
think
making
Callahan
the pick.
feels? Like this is Will Levis, Bryce. It worked out for Bryce, but Callahan's probably like, dude, there's no way. No way I can do this again with this guy.
Yeah, but it didn't really work out for Bryce because they fired the coach. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to compare it to Bryce, then I think it's actually a really good comparison to Bryce Young, but you're telling me there's a really rocky road to get to where Bryce Young is now, and you just don't want to deal with that from an asset standpoint. So I get it. Oh, all right. 109. I'll make this quick. This is tough. There's 4 receivers I could argue I could take. I don't love the landing spots. I especially don't like Igbuka and Burden's landing spot in Pittsburgh and Green Bay. I think this is a spot where in best ball, I will take the shot on Travis Hunter because he's going in the top 5. He's going with a quarterback situation that I already know. So I'll take him. But I also could admit that you guys are going to pick at the 110, 111. I'm picking at the one, like they're all the same to me. So I have to pick first because there's no trading. So I'll go Travis Hunter here at the 109. But I think it's kind of a flat range of picks for me. Ray, you're up. Any thoughts on that? It's a tough spot.
Was he drafted in Ian's mock? Does it say he's being drafted as a
wide receiver corner? So I think it's going to be the same clarity we're going to get. You're going to get just risk with him, but if he goes to New England, they do need a receiver. So at least it's that landing spot more than others that I think he clearly would have to play if he's going to play receiver. So,
I'm fine with it. I'm up at the 110, right?
You are up, my friend.
All right, go to Houston and give me Travion Henderson, who was selected in round 2, 58 overall. So at the end of the second by the Houston Texans. He is the lightning to Joe Mixon's thunder. It was very clear that they lacked explosives. You've got a quarterback that has no problem checking down to the running back, and you've got a team devoid of pass-catching talent right now with both of their starting wide receivers recovering from devastating injuries, and we already know Tank Dell is not going to play in 2025. Henderson's athleticism, his speed, his dynamism. There are some people in the draft space who think he can be RB2. Some think he can be the second running back off of the board in round 1. In this mock, going to Houston at 58, I'm looking at the landing spots of the other receivers, and we'll talk about them as we get there, but I'm just more confident in the situation around Travion Henderson in this landing spot. Love it here at the 110.
Cody, you're a Texans fan. What would you think of this spot? They obviously need a running back, and I think the community would be very split on this, despite liking Travion. You know, they've been burned by some running backs that go to spots with an incumbent starter. What do you think about this as a Texans fan?
Yeah, I still think there's going to be a lot, at least year 1. There's probably only 1 year of Joe Mixon, but I think there's going to be at least 1 year with a lot of Joe Mixon running out there. Maybe you start to see that shift happen like halfway through the season where Travion starts to show off a little bit more. Joe Mixon typically also kind of tapers whenever he starts racking up his hits throughout the season as well. But you got the new offense coming in, so I think it will be a battle between these two all the way through camp to see who kind of picks up the offense and learns this one as we go through, whatever that ends up being. So I love Travion Henderson, the prospect, and I love this landing spot for the Texans long-term as well. May not be the best year 1, but I think it's going to be a long-term smash landing spot for him.
You know what this landing spot is? I call this the Trojan landing spot. It's a fucking condom. You know why it's a condom landing spot? Is because you're protected. You're protected with Travion Henderson. Even if he doesn't play, all he's got to do is touch the ball a little bit and be explosive. His value will maintain. And what people will say is, wait until that inefficient Joe Mixon gets out of the way, and then it's to the moon. Probably not, but that's what the belief will be. This is a Trojan landing spot. I love this landing spot for him. I don't think there would be a battle. Joe Mixon's the starter. Joe Mixon's on the field 65+% of the time to start the season, but you're protected. All you need is just the tip, and people will be excited.
I love it. Same argument I made last year with Jonathan Brooks, right? Like he was going to miss part of the year because he wasn't going to play. And it's until there's a reason for people to give up on him, they're still going to write the story where he's the next in line. Of course, that one didn't work out good, but I think the logic is very similar. Like people will they will give him a pass. Like to be fair, they'll give him a pass, Cody. And if Caleb Johnson isn't smashing in Denver right away, they'll start saying, man, he's no better than Audric Estime or Javonte Williams was, or why is Jaleel McLaughlin still getting the ball? You know, like I can see that narrative running away from some of the other guys if they do not just absolutely smash right away. So that's a great point by Ray. Cody, you're up 111.
Yeah, and this is where I'm going to end up going to play the landing spot over the prospect evaluation for me personally, pretty heavily here. But whenever you have a wide receiver who is in the first round drafted and he is paired up with the quarterback who people are putting at the quarterback 1 overall in Dynasty, it's got to be Matthew Golden, because his value is going to shoot through the moon as soon as he lands with JD5 or whatever wide receiver that is. I am purely playing what that landing spot looks like right now. Terry McLaurin's not a spring chicken either, even though he hasn't been in the league that long. He's on the other side of 30 now whenever this new season starts up. I will take Matthew Golden to be JD5's future and his future wide receiver 1 to grow with, that people will say.
Right, you agreeing with that? I was considering Golden over Hunter for that exact same reasons. I think Cody nailed it.
Got nothing to add. Smashed it. Nothing to add.
Yeah, that's crazy because I think most people love Egbuka and Burden way more than Golden, but if he went to Jaden Daniels, they would immediately be he's better than McLaurin. You know what I mean? He's taken over from McLaurin sooner rather than later, so I can't argue with the logic. All right, last pick of the first round. There's a lot of intriguing players. I think the second and third round is going to be very interesting. We're going to get some new names that probably pop on the radar. This is going to be just ADV for me. I think that I'm personally not high on the Packers situation from a passing standpoint. They were the lowest in the league in neutral pass rate. I think they have other receivers, whether we think they're good, that are not going to just go away. So I would not be shocked if we see Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Tucker Kraft getting targets in the mix with Luther Burden right away. But I think people like Luther Burden a lot. The Packers are a team that people are asking for them to draft a stud receiver. Hell, their own running back said they need an alpha receiver. I don't think Luther Burden is an alpha receiver, but people will. So I think getting him at the end of the first when he's a first-round pick tied to Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, I think that's a slam dunk pick at the end of the first. And I need to put the right player in there and not Luther Burden.
Get that Jaden Higgins.
It's not Jaden Higgins. It's Luther Burden.
I know who you're going to pick coming up. I think you subconsciously had that on there, but okay. All right.
He may be coming up, but no. Luther Burden rounds out the first round. Starting the second, Ray, you kind of agree with that logic on Luther Burden? It feels like I'm not as high on him, but man, the community would just tell themselves a story how that is what Josh Jacobs wanted, a wide receiver 1.
If this were to play out, Jaden Reed would almost be dead. Christian Watson is dead. It's all Luther Burden. They're gonna this. I structurally this doesn't fit the team to me. Another slot receiver, but yeah, I would take him at the 112 spot for sure.
All right, 2 rounds left, boys. Not crazy picks in the first. I think all the same players that we've basically taken have found themselves close to the first, if not the first in previous drafts. But here is where it's going to start to get crazy because this is best ball. And we got 2 more rounds with draft capital and landing spots. So Ray, kick us off 201.
201, we're going with probably one of the bigger ADV landing spots for a running back. Yet it's a running back who has not been in the media. It is an underclassman that wasn't at the Senior Bowl, that wasn't at the Shrine Bowl. But in the third round, the Dallas Cowboys selected SEC running back out of Tennessee, Dylan Sampson, at pick 76. And I'm going to take him at the 201. Dallas currently doesn't have a damn running back. And Dylan Sampson's good. Running back that lands in Dallas unopposed. They didn't take another running back in this draft. They don't spend on running back in free agency. I think people would really, really want Dylan Sampson. So I'm taking Dylan Sampson here at the 201.
Cody, I think if this happened, people would push him up into the late first in best ball. I think if people just see Dallas, he's the starter day one. He's going to get all of Rico Dowdle's work from last year, plus more. I don't know, man. Feels like this is a great pick for Ray, just purely based on what he said.
Yeah, I definitely love the landing spot. Obviously, you're not going to have hardly anything else in that backfield, at least as we have it right now. So he's just going to come in with that ADV of having everything that he's going to eat all the way through training camp and off season until they add something. And even if they do, it's probably not going to be splashy. That's not, if they make this splash, it's probably not going to be much else for the Cowboys at the position. So he's going to eat a lot of that work. I'm still going to go with the first round wide receiver for me personally, though. I think it's a far slip, a little bit too low for me personally on Emeka Egbuka. Obviously we had, a couple of guys pushed up here, and I know the landing spot is going to scare people off because the Steelers wide receivers, ever since Big Ben, have never been able to really succeed at any high level that matters to your fantasy team. But at this point of the draft, once Emeka Egbuka falls to the 202, I'll just take the talent here and cross my fingers and hope to God that somehow they figure out a quarterback position going forward there in Pittsburgh. But they probably end up bringing back either Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, and it still looks bad next year, and he'll have to beat out George Pickens on the outside as well. And their run rate probably won't be any. It'll probably still be massive with Mike Tomlin there. So it's a scary one, and I understand why he fell a little bit, but I'm still just going to bet on the talent here, Emeka Egbuka.
Ray, we've seen this story before, though. Juju replaced Antonio Brown. Chase Claypool pushed out Juju. Deontay Johnson pushed out Chase Claypool. George Pickens pushed out Deontay Johnson. I actually think people would like this spot because they don't really like George Pickens, and they figure, man, Egbuka could be the number one right away. Even if you don't like the specific team, I kind of feel like there's some intrigue with this spot because there would become a battle between Pickens and Egbuka. And I could see a lot of people preferring Egbuka because they may say, oh, Pickens is going to be gone. Steelers aren't going to put up with his shit. Egbuka's the wide receiver one. And then, like Cody said, maybe they'll just fix the quarterback at some point. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Egbuka is probably, if you take out the 175, Loveland's not in round one. If you are on the fence that Travis Hunter is more corner than receiver, then he's not in round one. And then at that point, it's between the Dallas running back and Egbuka. He's right there at the back of the first. I think this is an appropriate spot for him. Given the format, I went back and forth with him versus Sampson, and ultimately I just landed on the fact that Dallas did nothing else in this mock to add to the running back room. They prioritized Sampson. I'm fine with Egbuka at the 202 spot. Right now, the odds-on betting favorite is Aaron Rodgers to be the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh. A lot of people are saying Rodgers as the quarterback in Pitt, and then they also drafted Jalen Milroe, which leads me to believe they've got some veteran quarterback on the team. I just don't. I think he's a great NFL fit. Fantasy-wise, it's just tough. But, yeah, he's got to go right here. He's a first-round damn receiver.
And you'd agree, NFL-wise, this probably makes a lot more sense than the Luther Burden to Green Bay, right? Just in terms of what they need.
Oh, yeah. He complements George Pickens very well. They don't really have a power slot. So I like this. I like it.
And then they take Aaron Rodgers, add him, and then Devontae Adams follows, and Egbuka just is a year 1-0, right, Cody?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, if Rodgers went to Pittsburgh, Cody would have a ton of Rodgers Adams. I just know he would, wouldn't you?
Already do, and I would just add more.
All right. So Egbuka's off the board. Man. It's tempting. I'm not taking Jaden Higgins as much as I want to say he's going to probably go here in the next 6 to 8 picks. I'll tell you where I'm going to go. This is the first pick where I feel like this is blasphemy that I could actually make this
I know
pick.
what you're going to do.
What am I going to do? You know me almost better than anybody.
You're going to take Cam Scatterboo right here.
I feel the Cam Scatterboo to the Chargers and the Austin Eckler comp is just...
I knew it. I knew it.
It is insanely hard to pass up, even though as much as I love DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson's not good, I can easily see where people will just crush the comments about how does Omarion Hampton going to the Bears not go in the top 15 when people think the Bears are one of the best landing spots for a running back, given Ben Johnson going there. Ugh. I'm taking Amari and Hampton. I think that if I'm arguing ADV, there's no way I can get out of it.
Ooh, I wanted you to stick it, Scott. Go ahead. Go
I
Hampton.
think that
Why
I think the ADV would be very high with Amari and Hampton to the Bears, and he still got early third round draft capital. I think that if they didn't have Ben Johnson and they didn't put together the running game that they did in Detroit, I think people wouldn't be as high on this spot, but nobody likes DeAndre Swift. Everybody mocks a running back to the Bears in the first 3 rounds. And this is a dude that people think should be the RB2, and he fell. So I can't argue the Scadaboo ADV if I'm arguing solely ADV, although I love the Scadaboo landing spot. I think the narrative there writes itself. So, Ray, I'm giving you the opportunity at 104 if you want that.
Loaded up with my favorite running back in this class, Cam Scadaboo. Yes, 204. I disagree. Cody, I want to hear from you. People hate the running backs in Los Angeles. Gus Edwards, Jake, and Cam Scadaboo, what is he? Scrappy, hard worker, not the fastest, pure football player.
He's a fat Austin Eckler. That's what he is.
And here's the thing I want to get. He is a phenomenal receiving back. He is a very good receiving back. He doesn't have a lot of, but you're talking about a team where people are dying for a running back to go. And then you get this kid who's from California, I believe. Like he went to Sac State before he went to Arizona State.
Yep.
I honestly, there are people as high as you think people think they are on Omarion Hampton. I've seen more people say the Scadaboo is a top 3 running back in this class, top 3 football player in this class at the position. He lands in the 3rd rounds at LAC. I think there's a world where he's drafted ahead of Matthew Golden. He's drafted ahead of Luther Bird. I mean, the cult following around him is unlike anything else. So I feel really good about getting Scadaboo here at the 2-4. He went to the Chargers, pick 86. So into the 3rd round, he went to the Chargers.
So upset that I can't talk more about Cam Scadaboo because I'm not fully bought into the train, but he's up there inside of my top 6 running backs in this class for me personally before we get to combine and everything. So I love myself some Cam, love this spot, but I do think people will get out a little bit ahead of their skis. Like I still think J.K. Dobbins is definitely coming back to this team, and he would eat in with him as well. Like it ain't just going to be the Cam Scadaboo show going out there for 80% of the workload. That ain't not what's going to happen there. But we'll get back and over to this 205 pick, and this is where I think there was a fall off for me personally whenever I was putting together my board about what tier of players that I could go right here. But I actually do really like this one, that with the 44th pick overall in the draft, the Dallas Cowboys selected Trey Harris to complement CeeDee Lamb as that true alpha X wide receiver on the outside for this team. Putting Trey Harris with that team, as much as I know the Dallas Cowboys get all their shit in the media and everything like that, you know what they have also always had, even though they really haven't ever had a true legitimate wide receiver too, their passing game has still been pretty decent. And Dak Prescott isn't a trash quarterback, and he's still not even to that 35-year-old age cliff where I start looking at quarterbacks and start worrying about the future. Putting Trey Harris on this team, I know some people have concerns with the evaluation on him, but going here in the 2nd round to the Dallas Cowboys, taking him here at the 205.
I can see the response from you, Ray. Doesn't this feel like we're almost to the point where if we were in a best ball draft, there's just a kind of a flat moment right at this point? Doesn't it kind of feel that way?
We're definitely there. At this point, you almost got to kind of talk yourself into these situations and the players, and I'm about to start deviating from draft capital.
It really is like you're having to talk yourself into, can I really take a 5th round running back or a 5th round tight end over a 2nd round receiver? But then I look at the receivers and I'm like, a couple of them I wouldn't touch regardless of,
right.
I would take them in a best ball because they're still there when nobody else wants them, but I'm not looking at all like I'm getting anything out of the production. So unless I think
Cody nailed this one. I mocked Trey Harris in my most recent mock, 44 overall to Dallas. He can at worst, Cody, be what Michael Gallup was, which was a borderline 1,000-yard receiver when he was healthy. So I like this pick a lot.
Ugh, man. All right. Well, I'm up at the 206. I could literally talk myself into about a dozen players, but if I can't use the argument of there's no way this player is going to fall this far, and I have to go based on this, I think it's between two players.
Just don't take my guy.
I know one of them you're not going to take, but yeah, you might. You've taken him in a couple mocks. I'm going to go with Jalen Royals based on this draft capital because I do think there will be opportunity in that offense with Liam Cohen. Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram are his competition. Both of those guys may not be long for the team. But I also could see this pick very easily being one where people go, oh, he got early second round draft capital, and they expect him to start right away, and he's not even on the field. He's not even playing in the first half of the year. So I think this is very risky, but it kind of signifies the drop-off in the class where there's just not an obvious pick based on a landing spot unless I'm really reaching down draft capital-wise. So that's probably going to be my exception because I can tell myself the story that people like the quarterback in the Liam Cohen offense. And there's probably an Evan Ingram getting cut or Christian Kirk moving away for people to talk themselves into Jalen Royals as their wide receiver too. So that's the only argument there, but it's not a great one. Ray, you're up.
This is where if I were picking at the 207 and I had taken Colston Loveland in the first, and with that, I bypassed Shedeur Sanders right here at the 207 spot. I'm going to reach into the third round and I'm going to go to the quarterback pool and I'm going to take a quarterback that's in a situation that I believe he will get year one opportunity. And at that point, the ADV explodes. So I've got to hold this zero for a little bit, but I'm going to Las Vegas and I'm taking Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. He was selected by the Raiders at 68. I'm cool with taking a quarterback at this point. When I look at the other receivers that are on the board, like I see somebody in round 4 or 5 that I'm good with at receiver. Running backs, I'm in the round 6 and I still like what's available at running back. Tight end, I look and I'm very excited about what's there in round 5. If I'm picking at the 207 spot, I'm not trusting that Jackson Dart makes it back to me at the 307. And I think this is an appropriate spot in Superflex to take a shot on a developmental quarterback. I'm good with Dart here at the 207.
Yeah, I like that pick without arguing he should have gone higher in the draft, which we think he will go higher than the third round. Like that's probably undershooting his draft capital. But yeah, I mean, they invested in Genty in the first round, right? They got a coach that's probably going to want to run the ball, but also he's going to get opportunity. So they're at least investing in the offense around Jackson Dart. So I can't argue with that logic.
The coach, they picked Jackson Dart. So I'm good with that.
Yep. Cody, you're up.
Gosh, this is my gross range. It's just throw the dart wherever you want to throw it. I could go one way, do a little bit of scarcity that's left on the board here. Could lean into the format, but I'm just going to go with a wide receiver that I personally like, and he's going to play opposite of another wide receiver that everybody loves and is thrown up into the top 4 Dynasty already, and Malik Neighbors. Jaden Higgins, 34th overall to the Giants, play outside for them. We'll see what they do at the quarterback position. They do address it later in this draft with a third-round pick, but I don't think he'd be starting from day one. You probably have some sort of bridge guy, but Jaden Higgins to the Giants, pick 34 will be my pick here.
Okay. So I incorrectly entered Jaden Higgins a little earlier, and he finally goes here. Ray, your thoughts on this spot? Like, he's going very high in the second round to the Giants. He's got an alpha opposite of him with Malik Neighbors. But we also don't know the quarterback situation. And, I doubt you think it's Quinn Ewers is going to feed Jaden Higgins in year one. So would this depend on what bridge quarterback they do have to whether, like, if it's Jameis Winston or someone like that. Are you even interested or no?
No, I think this would be the range. He's behind Malik Neighbors. He's behind Wan'Dale Robinson. You got Theo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy. I don't understand this pick. And I think the bigger thing that I think fantasy gamers need to understand is just because he was picked here does not mean this is the pick that you need to make early because he was picked the second pick in the second round. I don't see a schematic alignment reason why I should be taking the second or third or fourth option in New York behind Neighbors. I just not that this is a bad pick with the spot, but even with a new quarterback, this is just a player in a situation that I'm fading bad spots. And until this spot proves to be fruitful, you got a lame duck coach and GM, no quarterback, piss poor offensive line play, and a receiver that if you don't feed him, he will make a stink. So I just don't like it.
Ray, would it have changed at all for you if they would have drafted Shador Sanders in the first round?
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Because that's the big thing is if you have them taking a receiver in the second and then they drafted a quarterback in the first, you could argue there's a natural pairing. You know what I mean? Like you may hear the narrative, that's the receiver. Because this was wide receiver, I think 6 off the board. So you could argue whoever that quarterback wanted would be, maybe the guy that they took here. But I see what you're saying with it's tough to forecast it based on just that and not knowing what else they're doing at quarterback. Yeah. So, but it's a tough spot, Cody. There's not an obvious pick. I do think I thought you were going to actually use this because you made the, you let it slip. You said throwing darts. And I go, well, Jackson Dart in this mock would be throwing to second round receiver Isaiah Bond, who I kind of like better than Jaden Higgins. And I would like the spot because, again, they're investing in their offense, right? If they took Genty in the first, Bond in the second, and Dart in the third, he's kind of seen as like part of the triumvirate of the new Raiders. Whether you think he's good or not, I think you could sell people on Isaiah Bond in Las Vegas with Jackson Dart more than somebody on the Giants if they don't know who the quarterback's going to be. And that's just assuming that Jackson Dart is probably somebody that people are going to like more than Quinn Ewers. So I'll go with Isaiah Bond here at this pick at, what is this, 209? Yep, 209.
Good pick.
And that puts, and just some stats on Isaiah Bond real quick. He got hurt. Listen, I got to pump some Isaiah Bond because you gave me shit on the first mock for taking him high, Ray. I think I took him like mid-second and you go, oh, that's a wasted pick. Go back and watch it. It's on the channel. Isaiah Bond in 5 games before he got injured, more targets, more catches, and more yards than Matthew Golden. So just putting it out there. We'll see what he does at the combine, but I don't think it's a terrible pick here.
Yeah, I like the pick. I was going to take him if you hadn't taken him, but you guys are just setting me. I'm loving my draft. This mock. I feel so good. And at this point,
where you're going. I am
deviating from all draft capital. I don't give a shit. We just saw.
Here it goes.
The second place team in the NFL run the ball 7 goddamn times in the game. They have no running back of consequence. Scott, you hate Isaiah Pacheco. And what do we get? We get Ollie freaking Gordon to the Kansas City Chiefs, round 5. So he was a day 3 pick, and I couldn't care any less. I want him. I want him in Kansas City. They didn't take another running back in this draft. They didn't invest in a wide receiver super early. They didn't even take a damn tight end in this mock. They went out and got Ollie Gordon in the 5th round. Patrick Mahomes, team that needs a running back, doesn't matter where he gets drafted. His name, the ADV behind his name, and this landing spot, I want Ollie Gordon in Kansas City.
Yeah, this is like if Braylon Allen would have gone to Dallas last year in the 4th. It's just people love him. They love the team. They can just tell themselves the story. I don't think he would have fallen this far, to be honest. Somebody in our leagues would have taken him earlier. Don't you think, Cody?
Yeah, and really, if you're looking at the full board and what's left here, it starts to get gross with running backs that are even almost draftable left. I mean, there's still some that go in like 5th, 6th round here, but even once you start looking at landing spots, they've got to climb to get up, and this is where that best ball starts kicking in a little bit for me. He's the last one on my board. If I was going to go with the scarcity pick, I think that's what would really drive it for me personally on the Ollie Gordon, because there is nothing else that I really like at RB here.
Well, what are you doing? You are up.
Yeah, I'm going to go back into that format. It's not going to be necessarily the scarcity thing, but I am going to lean into the format. We are playing in the 1.75 tight end premium, so I think it's time to go back to the position. And while you might not like the quarterback that's currently there because he can't hit the broadside of a barn, and if he tries to hit Harold Fannin over the middle, he might end up throwing it to the sideline and hitting a cheerleader. But Harold Fannin, everybody knows about the production coming out of Bowling Green. Pick 80 overall to the Colts. I'm going to take, we'll see if the production turns into it here. We'll see if Anthony Richardson can actually develop and learn how to throw a football further than 10 yards on accuracy. But Harold Fannin here, I'm just going to go with the tight end premium position here, and he's the next tight end off my board.
I don't hate it. getting him here. Tight end 3 off the board. I hate the landing spot, though. Like somebody eloquently said, is he really going to come in and draw targets away from Josh Downs or Michael Pittman or Alec Pierce or even A.D. Mitchell with a quarterback that's throwing it 24 times a game with shitty efficiency? Like, I got to tell myself a real big story on the ADV that Harold Fannin is an impact player on the Colts, especially with the 3rd round capital and not because he went in the 3rd here. I've seen him mocked in the 2nd to the Colts before, but in the 3rd, I just don't know, Ray. I just can't invest in a Colts pass catching weapon when he's probably the 4th or 5th option on a team where nobody hates everyone hates the quarterback. So I just can't do it.
But here's the play though with Fannin. I think if you do take him and you don't trust those things, which is very football valid, during the offseason and the preseason and the training camp when the videos and the clips pop up, because Rich he is first team all summertime video clip. I mean, there's not a clip that exists where he looks bad. I think you just sell him at that point because people do really like Harold Fannin. I'm with you. I would be very nervous about this spot. I would buy and sell. He'd be a quick flip.
Yeah. Well, I'm up last pick of the 2nd round. There's 2 players that I'm really debating here because I do think it's starting to get to a real scarce point of the draft at running back. It's crazy that I would pass on Devin Neal here because I think he goes to a decent spot. He goes to a team that's going to draft a running back that he probably fits nicely with what they already have with Chuba Hubbard. But I think I'm going to lean to the team that takes a running back in the range where it's early round 5. People hate the running backs on their team.
Love it.
You've just seen Liam Cohen work magic with Bucky Irving. This feels like people will just say this is this year's Bucky Irving if they take Woody Marks, or there's a couple other guys that would fit this profile. But if they make this pick, you're going to immediately hear the Bucky Irving comps, and I want to invest into that. So there we go. Woody Marks went to Jacksonville round 5, pick 143.
Top of the 5th. I mean, ahead of Ollie, way ahead of Ollie,
Yep. All right, that's 2 rounds. We'll rapid fire round 3, guys. Ray, you were up in round 3. Yeah, go ahead. I'm probably already trying to trade out of this pick for anything that can score points.
I think ADV-wise, there's still one more massive bet on ADV. I think there's still one more massive bet that if you could draft this player at 301 and some things break right for you, you'll have a nice flexible asset. At the 301, I'm going to take the player who was drafted at the top of the 3rd, 66th overall, to the Kansas City Chiefs. Elic Aomanor, the wide receiver out of Stanford, was committed to the Senior Bowl. Reports are he got good feedback that he didn't need to be there, so he pulled out of the Senior Bowl. If you don't know anything about Elic, just pull up his tape versus Travis Hunter last year. Big, fast, strong, physical. Stanford wide receivers, we could debate on how good they are or aren't, but landing in Kansas City with the uncertainty around Kelsey, the uncertainty around Rashee Rice and his legal issues, Eddie profile's much different than Xavier Worthy. They'll do different things. They're not the same type of player. I'll take Elic Aomanor and the draft capital in the landing spot of Kansas City.
Yeah, I think when I saw this pick, I actually think this could be a realistic pick if they wanted to draft a receiver. Like, it wouldn't be a terrible fit. So I don't hate that one. Cody, do you have any ADV guys on the board? Because I have another one that I think maybe isn't as strong because people don't necessarily know the name. But if you were just going based on this, I could see some ADV. But what are you thinking here, 302?
Yeah, I've got 2-3 guys that I think could see their stock rise a little bit once we get through the season. It's just whether or not I want to go into more of the draft capital or the positional value in the format. Man, it's tough, but I'm still going to go, and I have to choose between the 2. Which one got the higher draft capital? Which one sees the targets? I'm actually going to go with Elijah Arroyo, tight end, 5th round pick to the Jets. I'm going to go with Elijah Arroyo, Senior Bowl riser, obviously, that everybody's heard about over the past couple of weeks, month or so, and we'll see if he continues. All reports probably going to smash combine here coming up soon. So Elijah Arroyo, he falls to the 5th here in this mock, which feels a little low, but also the position. Tyler Conklin ain't doing anything long term in that position at the tight end room, and you've really only got Garrett Wilson there right now. Alan Lazard looks to be out. Devontae Adams looks to be out. And you're looking at maybe Elijah Arroyo being, him and Xavier Gibson and Malachi Corley as your leading wide receivers for the Jets. You might get some run there.
There are reports that he could be the fastest tight end in the combine. History. That I don't think he's going to run faster than Vernon Davis, who ran a 4.33, 4.35, whatever Vernon Davis ran. But I'll say this: I bet you he cracks sub 4.4. Sub 4.49. He's going to be in the 4.4s. He mark it right now. He's going to be in the 4.4s. He is going to blaze. Saw him up close and personal. He's massive.
Yeah, I mean, and I believe Tyler Conklin's an unrestricted free agent. So I think they just kind of move on from that whole old regime. You know what I mean? And you could easily see Arroyo as whether he is the starter day one. That's a different story. But if he's the only one on the depth chart that people know, it's not going to matter. It's probably a pretty good pick, even though he went in the 5th. I'm going to go back. I think there's probably 4 or 5 picks I could make here. I think at this point, you do have to weigh, do I want to take Quinn Ewers or Jalen Milroe? Because I think both of them got the capital to where if the other quarterback in their quarterback room is a Justin Fields or a Drew Lock or someone like that, like they're getting on the field. Same argument as Jackson Dart. But we don't know that. So in that case, given I'm assuming that easily one of those teams could be the team that signed Sam Darnold to a $40 million deal. And like now he's not going to see the field for a couple of years. In that case, I wouldn't want to draft a quarterback here in best ball. I'm going to go Devin Neal. I think Devin Neal's a good spot. I think he'd have immediate opportunity in Carolina. It would be interesting how he would be viewed versus Jonathan Brooks, but I think this would be a huge indictment on Jonathan Brooks if the Panthers take another running back, which, Ray, I think you've mocked them numerous times to take a running back. Like they're going to take one. It's just
they should take 2. They should take 2.
Yeah, that this would not surprise me, even if it's not Devin Neal, that they take one in the maybe not the 3rd, but 4th or 5th. I think you can almost lock one in. So I think this is a great pick. Like Devin Neal, if he would have been drafted higher, we would have taken him way higher. So he went to 164 round 5 to the Panthers here at 303. Ray, you're up.
Yeah, let me just start by saying I am not a fan of this player. I think that this player is drafted maybe 100 spots or so too high, but playing the format, we're talking about a 3rd round running back landing on a team in Cleveland that just took Shedeur Sanders, a team that doesn't have a lot of offensive explosiveness. In this mock, the Browns selected Phil Maffa, the running back out of Clemson, at pick 94, ahead of Woody Marks, Devin Neal, and Ollie Gordon. He was one of 4 third-round running backs, along with Cam Scatterbo, Dylan Sampson, and Omarion Hampton. I'm taking Phil Maffa here at the 304.
Yeah, this feels like Cody, this kind of feels like the Isaac Garendo or the Tyrion Davis Price of like, why the hell did this guy get drafted so high? And people don't like him or don't know his name, so they just push him way down. But at some point, you got to take the 3rd-round running back that, I mean, if he landed in Cleveland, it's him and Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to give him a shot. Whether he's good or not is a different story. But I don't know. This is one of the most interesting picks of this mock, don't you think?
It certainly has to be. There's another one that'll probably sneak in here to the 3rd round as well that went a lot higher than I think people would probably have him right now. I'm not going to go there with my pick, though. I'm still going to go, and I'm just going to keep hammering home the tight ends. Gunnar Helm, pick 130 overall to the New Orleans Saints. Juwan Johnson's currently a free agent. I don't know in Foster Moreau specifically, but I do believe Gunnar Helm would be coming in here to lead that tight end room. We'll see. I mean, Derek Carr's, always crapped on, but he's at least good enough to spread the ball around and get you fantasy points in the receiving game. And I do believe Gunnar Helm has the opportunity to step in here from day one and lead that tight end room. I'll take him here in the 305.
When you went to say tight end, I thought you were definitely going to take who I'm going to take is Aronde Gadsden on the Rams.
That's who I wanted.
I mean, I'm looking at this even more going, man, how did I let him fall? Because with Cooper Kupp gone, he's a converted receiver. He's going to the place where you're like, if they draft Aronde Gadsden in the 3rd round, I'm probably going to get the benefit of him being potentially used in some ways that they use receivers, but he's listed as a tight end. So I'm kind of getting best of both worlds, plus an athletic 3rd-round pick to an offense that everybody's going to like, that just had their wide receiver 2 likely get traded or released. I think this is a pretty obvious pick to not let him go any further. Rondé Gadsden, 306, drafted in the 3rd round by the Rams. Ray, you're up.
This was the first time this mock where I was sniped. I have gotten everybody that I wanted up until that point, but here at the 307, so I'll get one more pick. Yeah, let's do it. Listen, this is a player that I've had in my own personal tiers and rankings from the beginning of this process. He lands in a spot where there's immediate opportunity, and the player is very, very good. I know he's right on that borderline, Scott, of, top 70, top 50 receivers. But in this scenario, Ricky White III, wide receiver from UNLV, was selected by the Houston Texans, knowing that they're down Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, only possessing Nico Collins right now. There's nobody on the roster. Freaking Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson, no thanks. He's one of the guys that I can see the narrative building, right? Oh, man, sleeper Ricky White with C.J. Stroud. Not that I think Ricky White is going to be anything special at the next level, but I can tell myself a story where there is narrative around him in Houston. So I'll take him at the 307.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't he a guy that people probably had a little bit higher coming into the season?
Yes.
Like he had a massive season in 2023. He had like 1,400 yards. Like he was, I remember his name popping up, and then it's kind of faded. You haven't heard it much in any. I mean, he hasn't been drafted anywhere close to any of the mocks that we've done, but listen, I could see it. He's the Tank Dell replacement. He's Houston's wide receiver too. Whether you believe that or not, I can definitely see people buying that. So
he still had 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns this year. So back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, back-to-back 80-catch seasons. Yeah, at UNLV.
Yeah. Listen, I think going to the Texans with Tank Dell down and the fact they hit on Tank Dell, like I can see the narrative selling itself right there. So, Cody, you have Ricky White on your team, but you are up at the 308. What you doing?
Yeah, what they don't tell you is Cooper Kupp's already on the team because he followed the offensive coordinator as well. So Ricky White's just buried. Man, I've got a couple. I'm torn on this one. This is just dart throw land, and I don't know why I'm mostly torn on this one out of almost any other pick that I've made. There's still a 2nd-round wide receiver on the board.
Two
of them.
Two, yeah. And I am going to take one.
Which one?
I'm going to make it Ty Felton. I'm going to make it Ty Felton.
Good pick.
Number 40 overall to the Saints. Obviously, the draft capital is high, and Ty Felton's a pretty solid player as well. Not one that I've gotten a lot into film analysis of yet, but landing here with the Saints, everybody's got their concerns with Chris Olave right now and his long-term health. Maybe there's that. There's also the Rashid Shaheed injury that he's coming back off of. We'll see what his actual role is, but that draft capital is pretty nice to land on whenever you're here at the 308 yet.
Right, we got Ty Felton going in the top 40. Tell us a little bit about him. I know you know something.
Yeah, I like Ty Felton. I don't think he's a top 40 player. Shifty, wasn't as impressive in Mobile in person. I thought he'd be one of those guys like Restrepo that would just cut folks up out there and didn't really come to fruition. But in New Orleans with 2 receivers that aren't great models of health or consistency, sure. You hear? Let me say this. Any name that you're hearing that you don't know a lot about, right? Ty Felton, Bashal Tootin, Phil Moffa, whatever name we've invoked that you're like, I don't really know who the hell that is. I would consider that player like low ADV. Like that player, even with the 40th overall pick, with sharp fantasy analysts like ourselves, we still didn't touch him. So what I would say is those are your sleepers. Like those, because at pick 40, he's going to play. Whether you think what we've done is we've said through this exercise, we like these guys better than him. And we know that Ricky White and Rondé Gadsden, they're better players because we like them. But what the NFL and the team said is, no, he's a top 50 guy, top 40 guy for us. That's how sleepers are developed, not finding some dog shit player that was a UDFA. It's ignoring the Phil Moffas, the Ty Feltons, the Jalen Royals, the Jaden Higgins, and then they start to pop, and you're like, oh, where to go? Well, hell, they're getting opportunities. So personally, I don't think he'll go there, but if this were true, this is a great pick. This is probably the best pick in the last 10 picks we've made is Ty Felton right here.
And I do apologize. I know there's another second round wide receiver. I just forgot about it because as soon as I saw it, I wrote him off my board and said he's undraftable.
I was going to ask Ray the same thing. There's one other second round. I'm not touching that second round receiver. Ray, are you?
You should, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's more probably the landing spot than anything that he goes to. But yeah, Xavier Restrepo went to the Eagles at the end of the second. I'm not taking him here, nor I'm going to take him with my last pick. I do think there's some interesting cases for players that maybe the situations are a little under the radar. Like I'm just looking at, if I wanted to go back to the running back, well, I can sell myself on at least 3 of the running backs that are there getting opportunity. I mean, Milroe and Ewers are sitting there. Those guys would be very intriguing picks if I knew who the starter was going to be. If it's just what they have today, they would have already been gone because I would bet they're probably starting half the year. Now, I don't love either one of them going in the 3rd round for best ball because there's no guaranteed opportunity, but
there's Colt following that running back left. There's one left that with that landing spot.
There's 2. There's 2.
I think, yeah.
There's 3, actually. There's actually 3. If I'm looking at, you know what? We're going to draft based on the format. We're going to go based on what the teams did in the draft.
Yes.
And I'm going to go, you may not even have thought I was going to go with this, but I'm going Damian Martinez to Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
That's the Najee replacement. I don't care if he went in the damn 7th round. Yep. That's the only guy they took. He's going to get opportunity because it's not Jaylen Warren taking the Najee role.
Correct.
So, I can sell that story, even though I don't buy a 7th round running back. Somebody's going to Pittsburgh, and it's probably going to look like a guy like Damian Martinez and not Brashard Smith or Woody Marks. So there we go.
In the 3rd round of your rookie mocks, you better be factoring in opportunity and I don't give it at this point. I'm taking him over Jordan James, who went to Baltimore in round 6. I don't care. I want Damian Martinez, the projected replacement for Najee Harris. You got to tell yourself those stories. I'm on the clock at pick 310, and I think this is an interesting story to tell. Because this team in round 1 took a player who's categorized as a receiver / cornerback. I don't know. But then in the 4th round, the beginning of the 4th round, same team comes back and drafts another receiver, Jack Besh of LSU. So I'm going to take Jack Besh, who was selected by the New England Patriots, 105, round 4. I'm going to take him right here. This is a player that I think is going to go on day 2. Goes on day 3 here, beginning of the top of the 4th round. And he fits Vrabel. Like does the junk receiver. He's going to be on the field. He produced at LSU. His freshman season at LSU on a field that had Neighbors, that had Brian Thomas Jr., he led them in receiving as a freshman playing tight end. He led them in receiving as a freshman in the SEC at LSU, took his talents to TCU, had another 1,000-yard season there. He's big. He's got enough athleticism. He feels like a Patriots guy that Drake May can grow with. He's got an incredible story. I think the fantasy community would be very much in on Jack Besh, the sleeper, with Drake May.
I think that's probably one we overlooked because he went in the 4th, but if he would have gone in the 3rd, you could have easily told people the story. 100%. I totally agree. Cody, you got any thoughts on old Jack Besh? Feels like it's just Patriot. He's the kind of guy that people have mocked for the Patriots for years. You know what I mean? Like they need the next white, gritty receiver. And there he is. You got the guy in this draft.
Last year, I legitimately thought it was going to be Jalen Polk who was going to fill that role, and obviously he flopped out. So then you got to take another shot, and now the shot is Jack Besh to see if he can fill the same exact role. They need somebody, and like you said, we probably start to put those cutoffs maybe a little bit too hard when we look at, hey, it's a 3rd-round wide receiver compared to a 4th-round wide receiver. What does it really matter at the end of the day? He fell to a spot that definitely has some openings that he can make a contribution to. And with my last pick on the board, I don't want to go quarterback. I don't like eating the zeros in best ball. I know I play that one a little bit differently at the quarterback position. But if you're not starting day one, and I don't think either of these two with Jalen Milroe or horns down Quinn Ewers would either, and I would burn if I made that pick as my last pick of this draft. Not going to go there. So I'm going to go back to the top of the 4th round wide receivers as well. Earlier, whenever I was talking about Arroyo, I was talking about the lack of weapons that they have. I think Jalen Knoll, 109 pick overall to the Jets, could step in as a wide receiver too from day one for that team. And I know a lot of people like Jalen Knoll a lot more than I do. And so you put him there. He has immediate opportunity. I'll take Knoll to round out this draft for myself.
Very interesting pick.
He's going top 50. I think there's an outside shot after the combine. He's where Jaden Higgins is. I truly believe he's going day 2. I had him mocked in the 2nd round of my mock to Atlanta at 46. He is incredible in and out of his routes, back-to-back productive seasons. Just played at Iowa State, and he's fast as shit. I love this pick. I love this player.
Man, there's so many picks where I'm like, I would love to get these guys off waivers, and a lot of our drafts are only 3 rounds. So I'm literally sitting looking at this pick going, man, I wish I could trade this pick for.
Can I make it fun and just throw some names out there, not knowing who you will take?
I already have my pick already decided.
Terrence Ferguson here in the 3rd round to San Francisco. My goodness, he's still on the board. DJ Giddens to New Orleans. Like, really? I mean, come mix. On, man. Yep. Okay. Are you going any of those guys?
That Giddens was basically the other running back I was considering with Damian Martinez because they don't have an RB2. Their RB1 is old, and I think people could see him getting an opportunity there. I think you could argue Tez Johnson. People like him. He's in the 3rd round. I don't particularly love this landing spot, but, you know, it is what it is. He went to the Cardinals in the 3rd. We already mentioned the quarterbacks. I'm going to go out on a limb just because we don't talk about this player a lot. As much as I'd love to take Mason Taylor, I don't like that Mason Taylor landing spot because it's on the Giants and he goes where they already have another tight end that's very similar to him probably. I'm going to go Jake Brenningstool. I think he could probably step in the Chargers landing spot and went round 5 to the Chargers. They don't have a tight end either. It's not the draft capital I would want to see. I would hope it would be a little higher, but we've seen tight ends literally get on the field out of nowhere. It's Jim Harbaugh. He likes tight ends. Brenningstool kind of feels like a guy they haven't really had. So I'm going to make that my last pick at 312. And I don't know. I'll say my final thing of this draft is there's a lot of players that I would love to pick up off waivers here, but I absolutely can see why almost all of the ones still on the board did not get drafted. So Ray, final thoughts. I mean, what do you see on the board that's interesting?
I mean, Terrence Ferguson, day 2 tight end in San Francisco. That has been the tight end hit factory under Kyle Shanahan.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a smash spot for a guy that they've probably seen play a lot in the Pacific Northwest, you know, out on the West Coast. I think your Brenningstool pick was good. No Xavier Restrepo was picked in the 2nd round to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'll just say that I think it's tough, man, because it's a great situation, but they don't throw a lot. But him not being selected at all, it feels like a mistake. It just does. It doesn't feel right that Xavier Restrepo was not taken. And then you just, you know, no Ewers, no Milroe. And it sucks because I wanted to take Milroe where I took Phil Maffa. I think Anthony Richardson just did him in. Like, people are so afraid of that profile of quarterback that it just, again, I talked about Cody holding risk with Shador. Give me Shador over Milroe. Like, there's a lot more risk in that Milroe. So it's tough. My big question for y'all is neither one of us, not one of the 3 of us, even mentioned or talked about Kyle Monangai, who was drafted ahead of 8 of the running backs that we took after him. He was the lone 4th round running back, and we didn't even mention Kyle Monangai. Didn't even mention him.
I think I just got 3 other RBs already locked in ahead of him. I don't think there's any way we're projecting future rosters, but I don't think there's any way they're letting go of Ty Johnson. You've got James Cook. I still really like the kid that they drafted last year as well, and I think he comes in as like the 4 there. This is kind of what like the Jets have done at their running back position, where they just draft without really a need and they just keep replacing, and then they end up cutting one of them, like a Michael Carter 2 years later. This feels like that, and I don't know if it would be Monungai or if it would be one of the other running backs already on that roster, but that's why I just almost immediately removed off of my board. But the draft capital's there.
I think one thing we can learn from this draft as we close it is, with what's left on the board, I think we're starting to get a glimpse of, if some of these teams do anything close to this, you can kind of see how people may react, right? Like, nobody's going to love a day 3 Colts running back, especially if it's a pass catcher like Tootin or Brashard Smith, because they don't throw to the running backs and they're not taking Jonathan Taylor off the field. So what are you getting, Ray, if you get a 5th or 6th round scat back to the Colts? You know what I mean? Probably not a good fantasy asset. Yeah. I mean, same thing if you get a Baltimore running back. Like, I don't mind Jordan James, but like, he's going to Baltimore with no draft capital. It's just like, he's not even an RB on a 53 that you would consider. I mean, brutal landing spot, RJ Harvey in the 7th to the Buccaneers. I mean, that just feels like he's probably not going to find a role anytime soon.
What about Brashard Smith to Miami? I don't mind that spot for him.
I don't either. I think that's an indictment on it's definitely an indictment on the rest of their running back room, but I can see him having a role with, how they use Achane, right? Like, he's like
he said that's who he models his game after. He told us that he's like
he's the Achane replacement, right? Basically. He's like that. That's an indictment on Jalen Wright, because I would probably like him over Jalen Wright, but I don't know if he would play over Jalen Wright.
Oh, yeah,
so I don't know. Anything else that's interesting to you, Cody, before we wrap it up? Any other the tight ends besides Ferguson?
Tight ends, my board ended. Did have ETN to the Giants late. I think that's kind of an interesting one, with a pretty dead backfield behind Tracy there as it currently sits right now. And I mean, we've been throwing out names for a good while here that I definitely think are very draftable. I think you could sell yourself on Savion Williams even to the Lions, just with how much they throw the ball around, and people love the Lions wide receivers, and they, for some reason, love Savion Williams. I don't personally, and I wouldn't have drafted him, but I think somebody would potentially sell themselves on that. And so this is where, like, one of my favorite things to do whenever you have one of these back end 3rd round picks, if that's all that you have and that's all that's drafted, just sell your pick and get fab, and then pick up like 6 different guys off the fab whenever. I mean, why take your shot on the one whenever I can just collect fab and get like 5 more guys off the waiver wires whenever it ends?
Yeah, it's definitely a strategy of best ball when you have so many roster spots you got to fill. Like, as much as we made every one of these picks in the 3rd round, I would take 5 of the players on the board over one of the picks in the 3rd round, unless I knew exactly what I was going to do with it, just based on volume. So this was fun, guys. This was fun actually to go through a best ball mock with actual landing spots. It made you really think about analyzing some of the names that we've talked about previously through a different lens, because we did have the capital in the landing spots. But that's it. Again, Ian Cummings mock on Pro Football Network. Like and subscribe to the channel if you could. Support all the content creators on there. We have stuff coming out daily, at least 1 or 2 mock drafts coming out every single week. And stay tuned for more formats just like this, where we're drafting off of base real NFL mocks that are made. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.